You pick Bama to beat Georgia on the road, but Auburn to beat Alabama at home, and you look at me and says it makes no sense for me to pick Auburn to beat Georgia at home.
Because we've beaten Alabama with teams like they have.
It's time.
When's the last time we beat Georgia with a roster like this?
What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us again on Crain & Company and making Crain & Company a daily watch or listen. Remember, without you, there is no us. And yesterday, we dropped our first season prediction for a single team with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Make sure you check that out. Today, we're going to do another big dog in the SEC, pun intended, the Georgia Bulldogs, with Kirby Smart trying to get back to Titletown after winning back-to-back and not getting there since. Got a lot of similar problems. David Cohn, not that you have similar problems, but you were a former Michigan quarterback, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crain to my right as well. Guys, this Georgia team fits right into the narrative that we're seeing about all the big brands, not all of them, but most of the big brands around college football, where you feel like you have a new quarterback that we don't know a ton about. We know a little bit about Gunnar Stockton. He came in some big moments last year, did some good things. We're going to see if he's going to continue to evolve. But the roster around him should be really, really, really good when you look at the way Georgia recruits, the way Georgia develops, and then you look at the wide receiver position, the way they handled business in the transfer portal, getting Branch to come over from USC, getting Noah Thomas, returning Colby Young, Dylan Bell. But Cone, when you look at this Georgia team like we did with Alabama yesterday, give me one thing you feel really good about and one thing you need to see or you may be quote-unquote worried about a little bit.
Because Georgia didn't win the national championship, it kind of feels like they're not the defending champs in the league, right? But they are. They won the SEC a year ago, and I think that they have their sights set on getting back to the promised land on those back-to-back national championships like they did with Stetson Bennett. When I look at the roster, and we've talked about it a bunch this offseason, what I feel confident in is the defensive side of the ball, and that really is the identity of any Kirby Smart-led team. When you have names like Christian Miller and C.J. Allen and K.J. Bolden, sort of the depth of that, like every single layer of the defense, you have a playmaker who can dictate terms in a game. And with Kirby Smart, a defensive-minded guy, we've seen him do it on the biggest stage. I feel confident in that. One of the questions I have is the offensive line. We were talking about this a little bit. You send 4 out of your 5 starters to the NFL, but from a team that really didn't run the ball. What was the stat you had on the run game?
They had one game where they had over 100 yards.
In 2024, Georgia had one game where they rushed for over 100 yards. From an offensive line that sent 4 out of their 5 starters to the NFL, and you got one returning starter. Now, if you go down the depth chart, you can see that all of these guys have been within a program. They're not trying to do a thing, like Colorado, where you got a bunch of new guys all trying to mesh together in fall camp. But still, can Georgia run the ball effectively game in and game out, especially when you're on the road in this league? That's a question I have.
And it's funny because that falls right in line with what we talked about with Alabama a little bit yesterday. With all the talent on the offensive line, they weren't able to run the ball very well last year. We talk about LSU with all the talent, including Will Campbell, one of the first offensive linemen.
And Georgia didn't protect well last year.
No, they didn't. It was just not good overall, which is weird when you look at the amount of talent, again, looking that went to the NFL. LSU's the same thing, as I mentioned. They had all this talent on the offensive line. They struggled to run the ball. Blaine, when you look at Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, how confident are you with what we saw last year coming in some big moments, obviously? When
he got thrown into the fire.
He got thrown. This isn't you come in against an FCS team and you get to play a half and you look great against them. He got thrown into the absolute fire in the biggest moments for Georgia. And that experience should help him going forward. But how much confidence in his game do you have right now after what you've seen?
Well, I have more confidence now because of what surrounds him. Obviously, Zachariah Branch, the Oscar Delp, Dylan Bell.
Lawson Lucky, too, at tight end, who I think
is going to be fantastic. So that gives me a little bit more of a confidence boost. But I want to see more of him, especially in the passing game. Look, we know Gunnar can take off and run. Right? He's not scared of contact. He's from Georgia. He's a junkyard dog. He'll put his head down. But to beat the teams that Georgia's going to have to beat, he's going to have to beat some teams from the pocket.
Yeah.
Right? And I know he broke some passing records in Georgia, threw for 234 against Notre Dame, which is pretty good, 32 passing attempts from a team that could not run the ball. So I think Gunnar, I'm about 70% confident in him from a skill level standpoint. But the thing about it, we talk about this other team, talk about it with Alabama yesterday. Gunnar doesn't have to be the hero.
Yeah.
Right? How does Georgia win their championships? How does Georgia get to where they are? They control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Then you add pieces like Zachariah Branch, Branch and Oscar Delp and
Noah
Dylan
Thomas,
Bell.
yeah.
And I think Nate Frazier is going to be a great piece at running back.
Like
He's
him.
only going to get better.
Like him.
So I just think I have confidence in Gunner, and I think it's great for him to get thrown into the fire he got thrown into last year. And those first couple weeks, I know they're not great teams, but I think it's going to be good for him getting comfortable from a timing standpoint and walking into that first big game against Alabama.
Well, David, going back to your point about running the ball, I mean, if you want to help Gunner Stockton out the most, be able to run the ball effectively, be able to set up play action. Don't make Gunner Stockton have to go win games with his arm consistently. Not that he can't, but to Blaine's point, that's not a great recipe for Georgia to win a national championship, which is the standard. So what you saw, the limited things that we saw from Gunner last year, how worried are you about his style of play and his kind of lack of taking care of himself when he does go run? Because remember some of the hits he took? Remember the hit against Texas, I think? He took at the goal line. He can't play like that and make it through a 12-game regular season. But how do you not take that quarterback stinger away? Because that is kind of what makes him a locker room favorite. How do you go about that?
I'm not worried about his style of play at all. I'm more concerned with how accurate are you with the football when you release it, and how quickly are you processing the game. I mean, we saw Tom Brady come out this week on whatever show it was talking about, I knew what every single defense was going to do before they did it. I wasn't a fast guy. I didn't have the strongest arm. I knew what they were going to do. That was my superpower. Can Gunner Stockton process defenses quickly? That's going to make his life a lot easier, combined with all the things we're talking about. But I'm glad you brought up Oscar Delp and you brought up Lawson Lucky, because remember, we talked about this. There was a period of time there for like 5 or 6 straight recruiting cycles where Georgia signed the number 1 or number 2 overall ranked tight end. I think they're going to find mismatches in 12 and 13 personnel like they've been able to do these last couple years. Obviously, Brock Bowers was the premier talent in that group, but they find these mismatches in 12 and 13 personnel, and they're able to exploit that. My question for you guys on Nate Frazier, since you brought him up, is he going to be a guy who's like a 3-down back who can do everything in the offense, or is it going to be a little bit more running back by committee?
I think he has the ability to be able to do that. What I'm wondering with Georgia from the health standpoint with Nate Frazier, because again, and running backs go through injuries. That's why their shelf life in the NFL isn't great. Not a lot of long-term running backs that you see have a lot of success. But watching him as a young guy, his ability, the pass protection is what I've got to see. I know he can run. I know he can get out of the backfield, catch the swings. He can run angles. He can do things like that. He's athletic enough to do that. It's great with the ball in his hands. But it's the pass pro. Because if you have a running back that can't pass protect and you have to bring in another guy to pass protect, that's a huge tendency that you're telling. We used to look for that, right? And again, if it's 3rd and 9, okay. You know, I get it. You're probably going to throw the ball. But on those downs, on the 3rd and 1s, right, on the 3rd and 4s and things like that, where you're trying to use a little bit of deception and you don't want to have those overall tendencies to protect Gunner Stockton. That's the next evolution of the running back. That's why we see some of these running backs that have come back to college. Najee Harris is a great example. He said, before I go to the NFL, I've got to become a better pass protector because I don't want there to be tendencies all over the place. But before we get into the single games, defensively, you know, I hear some Georgia fans say, well, I'm a little bit worried that we may not have an elite pass rusher. We talk about the linebackers. We love C.J. Allen. I can't live in a world where I look at the talent and the way that Kirby develops guys on defense and not think that this defense is going to be damn good and be sideline to sideline and really be able to keep them in some games where maybe the offense isn't hitting on all cylinders, Blaine.
Well, I promise you this, Christian Miller's a problem.
No, he's a problem. I'm talking about like multiple guys.
Yeah, Gabe Harris is a problem.
Yeah.
I know he didn't play in spring, but he's the number 1 edge coming off. Like, if there's anything I trust in this world, it's that Kirby Smart is going to have guys coming off the edge.
Yeah.
All right, and they're extremely deep at the linebacker position. I mean, they'll be able to rotate guys in and out the whole game. Everett is the most experienced secondary player sitting at corner. Long, great piece. I mean, and then you have KJ just running around killing people for 4 quarters. So I promise you, from a defensive standpoint, Georgia, I know it's not the huge names we're used to seeing from Georgia, but from D-line to safety, they are going to be maybe one of the best defenses in the country. I don't have a single worry about Georgia.
And that's what I've been trying to tell some Georgia fans.
Yeah, stop.
Again, that's a high-class problem when you got those athletes running around. Now, quickly before we get into this, I just want to explain to the people, if you didn't catch our show yesterday, how we're doing this. This is a regular season prediction, so it's 12 games. Later on, here in a couple weeks, we're going to have who makes the playoff, who wins the conferences, eventual national champion, Heisman winner, even though you can maybe find out who we think a couple of us are going to win the Heisman after yesterday's show. But these are going to be the 12 regular season games for Georgia. And guys, they start off the first 2 Again, I don't want to call them walkthroughs. I don't want to disrespect Marshall. I will disrespect Austin Peay. That's going to be a walkthrough. I can go ahead and tell you. But you start off with Marshall, and then you have Austin Peay. To save some time, can I go ahead and assume that we
pencil
all
me in for a W.
Pencil you in for a W on both of those games. So we start off with Marshall, and then Austin Peay. 2-0 for Georgia. And then you get into your first test. All right. And this is Tennessee. At Tennessee in Knoxville. If you look at Tennessee, they start with Syracuse. We're going to see I think that has a chance to be a tighter game than some people think with what Syracuse has and getting Angeli. Then Tennessee plays Eastern Tennessee State. So we could have 2-0 Georgia versus 2-0 Tennessee. David, I want to start with you. Where do you fall on the first big road test? Because remember, with Gunnar Stockton, and correct me if I'm wrong, he only played on neutral site games, correct? One in Atlanta, which make your jokes about it being in Georgia, this, that, or the other. And then obviously in the college football playoff, because they got that bye, they didn't have a home game for winning the SEC, and then it was a neutral site game. So first true road test as the guy for Gunnar Stockton.
And even if those hadn't been neutral sites, like there really is nothing that can prepare you for Neyland Stadium until you go and experience it. That place is going to be absolutely rocking in K-Town. But put me down for a win for the Georgia Bulldogs. Again, we talked about this a little bit yesterday in the Alabama preview. I haven't completely sold the ship on Tennessee. I think a lot of people have because of the spring surprise with Nico Iamaleava. But it's kind of the entire factor. When was the last time Tennessee beat Georgia? Was it the Dobbs Hail Mary?
I think
Are we going that far back now?
Yeah.
So again, this is sort of falling into the world of, hey, you get him at home, week 3, a young quarterback trying to get his his wings under him, but then you also are going to be seeing, hey, what does Joey Aguilar have? I need to see it first. I'm going to take the Georgia Bulldogs and that defense on the road in K-Town.
Blaine, where do you fall?
It felt weird because this was an easy pick for me. I think Tennessee is going to take a step back this year. We don't know enough about Joey Aguilar. And this is when the defense for Kirby Smart makes plays. Yeah. And I don't think Gunnar Stockton is going to walk in this environment and be afraid. I think Gunnar will play good, but not great. I think he makes a couple mistakes. But I think he maybe leaves a big drive late. I think Georgia probably by 2 touchdowns.
Well, this is one of those games where I think Tennessee's defense is going to play their ass off and keep the Vols in this game for a while. Mm-hmm. I just don't think, and again, obviously, talking about Joey Aguilar being the guy with everything that happened with Nico is going to be the first thing that people point at. And not that Tennessee has bad personnel on offense, but they lost their 3 top pass catchers from last year, and you lose Dylan Sampson. The odds of you being able to replace a quarterback, especially this late, replace your top back, shout out Baton Rouge, by the way, where Dylan's from, and your top 3 pass catchers going up against this Georgia defense, I don't think you're going to be able to click on all cylinders that fast. And even if you do, I don't know if Tennessee will be able to score when they get into the red zone if they're able to get some of these chunk plays. And at what point, if this game is 17-7 Georgia in the third quarter or something like that, does Joey Aguilar try and force some things down the field? And that's when you see KJ and Everett and some of these other guys make some plays. And that's when Kirby's going to dial your ass up a little bit because I just, the flow of this game feels like defense early, right? You get a couple scores from Georgia. Tennessee may make a play on special teams or get down there and kick a field goal, maybe even score a touchdown. I just consistently, David, don't see Tennessee being able to score enough, even though they're playing good on defense, to be able to win.
I think about it a little bit like a math problem where if both quarterbacks play the same, if they're both average in the game, I think Georgia wins. If they're both below average, I think that can play into Georgia's favor and Georgia wins. If they both have great games, I think Georgia wins. So how much better does Joey Aguilar or whoever's going to be the starting quarterback at Tennessee and that offense, how much better do they need to perform to be able to win a game? And it does help being at home, but I think Georgia has some built-in advantages as well when we talk about the depth on defense that we've already mentioned. So that's why I think just from a math equation, percentage, odds standpoint, I'm going to go with Georgia, and I think the odds makers probably agree with me on that.
I know we're not going to probably have a spread for that game yet because it is a little bit far in the season for them to doing it, but I would not be shocked if it was a 9.5-point spread or something like that by the time we got there.
See that.
That'd be big.
Would not be shocked. All right, so then Georgia's going to have a bye week. So we've all got Georgia at 3-0. And them and Alabama both have a bye week before they play each other. And this year, revenge game, redemption game, which when you look at Kirby's record against Alabama, most of them are going to be redemption games, at least to this point. The Bulldogs host the Crimson Tide in Athens. Pretty sure game day is going to be there. This is going to be a huge moment for Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson. Guys, yesterday I picked Georgia to win this game because when you have equal parts, there's a lot of similarities in what Alabama has and what Georgia has. New quarterback, great roster around them. I'm going to lean toward the home team here. I've got Georgia beating Alabama in another thrilling game. Not that Gunnar or Ty both play phenomenal or that they both play terrible. I'm wondering how conservative the play calling will be from Ryan Grubb and obviously from Mike Bobo at Georgia with these two quarterbacks. But I do like Georgia to find a way. I think I said overtime. Georgia kicks a field goal to win it with Peyton Widdring. So I got the Bulldogs starting out 4-0 with a huge win over Alabama. And if that happens, because Texas plays Ohio State week 1, you could see Georgia as the #1 team in the country.
Remember last year when we were in Tuscaloosa for this game and we were doing man on the street interviews, and I asked one of the Georgia fans, I said, hey, everyone thinks Georgia has an Alabama problem. Does Kirby Smart have an Alabama problem, or did he just have a Nick Saban problem? And he said, I think all of college football had a Nick Saban problem. And I said, fair enough on that point. But then you go out and you lose to Alabama in Tuscaloosa under the new regime of Kalen DeBoer. Obviously, this one is penciled in all the time because it's two premier brands in college football. I just think there is something a little bit personal about this. Now you get them in between the hedges now that there's no more divisions. Remember, this used to happen every year, but in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Now we're getting a home and home. The second half of this in Athens. I think the home team wins. I agree with you on this. But I'm really interested to see quarterback mobility from both of them. Ty Simpson, word out of fall camp right now at Alabama is Ty Simpson is flying with this chip they got in the pads or whatever it is. Gunnar Stockton, we know how he wants to run the ball. I'm interested in quarterback mobility and how they use their legs in this game to maybe create an advantage.
Well, I picked Alabama to win this football game. I think this is a game Gunnar Stockton somewhat tries to press. I think he tries to do too much. I think Ty Simpson has a great game. And I think games like this is when Ryan Williams is the difference maker. Right? I think
was last year.
Ryan Williams in this game, and I mean, look, you got Bernard, who's a dog, Isaiah Horton, who's going to be an absolute problem for Alabama. But I think Ty Simpson plays a better football game than Gunnar Stockton. And I think Ryan Williams is a difference. Close, obviously, it's going to be a heavyweight fight. But I think Ryan Williams, big catch late against Georgia to beat them in between the hedges. And I guess Kirby Smart just has an Alabama problem.
As football season is basically here, we know you're going to be tailgating. You may be chilling at the house, firing up the grill, whether it's wings, whether it's burgers, whether it's steak, whatever. When you're going to source your meat, you need to use our friends over at Good Ranchers. They're always a part of our game day barbecues. I mean, heck, even when it's not football season, they've been feeding our families for the past 3 years. And they source their meat. It's 100% American. All right, with all cuts coming directly from local farms and ranches. And when you choose Good Ranchers, that means supporting both our community and American ranchers while enjoying premium cuts that bring families and friends together around the table. Now, with Good Ranchers doorstep delivery, you don't have to worry about getting it or going to the grocery store and standing in those lines. Worry about anything else. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you grill it good. Now, rather than spending time at the grocery store, like I said, it shows up right to your doorstep. Whether it's tacos we've used with the pork, just steaks in general, chicken that we've put in the crock pot that our wives have absolutely whipped up, Good Ranchers is the place to go. Now, here's the deal. If you subscribe to any Good Ranchers box today, you get your pick of free meat for life. I'm talking free Wagyu burgers, hot dogs, bacon, or chicken wings in every single box. And if you use our code BOOSTER, it's BOOSTER, when you go to goodranchers.com, you're going to save an extra $40. So hit up goodranchers.com, use code BOOSTER for that $40 off, plus free meat for life. Let me say that again. Free meat for life. Head over to goodranchers.com. Welcome to the table, and welcome to the team. Well, this one's huge, just for the Kirby Smart point that we made and kind of trying to get over that hump and change that narrative. All right, so at this point, me and Cone both have Georgia at 4-0. Blaine, you have Georgia at 3-1. The next week, they're going to play Kentucky at home. I think this is the swan song year for Mark Stoops. I think we may see John Summerall.
No, you're pushing Mark down the raft?
I think you're paying him $7 million a year. And to me, with Mark Stoops at Kentucky, he's kind of like one of those guys that they start like a building project that's not like back in the day, that's not going to be done for 200 years. So they're not going to see the end of it. They just saw like a part of it that they started. I feel like that's where Mark Stoops
An important piece, nonetheless.
An important piece that people can build on when they get there and take over. You'll never see the end of it. I've got Georgia winning this one. I think this could be a shutout. I don't know if Kentucky's going to be able to score. I know sometimes it can get a little bit weird with Kentucky and Georgia, but I've got
on
Georgia.
The road mostly, right?
On the road. This one's at home, coming off the Alabama game. Whether it's a win or a loss, there's going to be a lot of momentum or a lot of wanting to get back out there and put together a good product for the fans. I have Georgia starting out, guys, 5-0 with a win over Kentucky at home. Are we all in agreement there?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and when this game gets weird between them, it usually is on the road. Now, look, Kentucky went into Oxford last year and beat Ole Miss. I've seen them do it. I know they can do it. I just haven't seen them go do it in between the hedges. I got Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I get Zach Calzada's 40 years old, but I mean, it's just not going to be enough to beat Georgia. I mean, you look
at what they lost in the portal.
Yeah,
you lose Barry and Brown.
LSU.
You've lost some pieces, and it's just I don't think you got the cats.
Yeah,
unintended.
It's not going to
today to beat them. All right, I want to start with Blaine on this next one.
Really?
Okay.
Why is that?
Well, you'll see. So Georgia got them both undefeated. Blaine has them with one loss, heading into the Deep South's oldest rivalry. And that's with Auburn.
Yeah.
And Georgia has just poom-pah slammed Auburn at every point and turn here lately, similar to Alabama. So Blaine on the road, and now there's a caveat here.
Okay.
Auburn has a bye week before they play Georgia.
So does Georgia.
At home. No, they don't.
No,
Georgia doesn't have a bye week.
No, I'm saying Kentucky.
Oh. Okay, touche.
Yeah.
Touche. Okay. That one went right over my head.
That was funny.
That was a good one. That was a good one. All right, Blaine. Georgia going to Auburn.
Oh, yeah, I got Georgia winning this football game.
Big?
No. I think it'll be somewhat close. Auburn might walk into the fourth quarter with the lead in this game, but to Hugh Freeze in Auburn's fashion, they'll find a way to blow it. I'm sure it'll be 3rd and 15. They'll bring three. Gunnar Stock's going to run for 16 yards, go down, score a touchdown, and we'll lose. I think these rosters are somewhat comparable. I think Georgia knows how to finish teams, and I don't think Auburn knows how to do that yet. So I like Georgia. Close, but there's no reason for me to pick Auburn in this football game.
All right, David, you tall mountain of a man. We got to pause here. That was a meta pause.
I'm about to do something I'm going to regret on.
Dude, I'm telling you.
See that right there?
Tell him.
There's that right there?
No, really?
I got the Auburn Tigers beating
Really?
Georgia in Jordan-Hare, young quarterback, going to the Bermuda Triangle, things getting weird. I may regret this in October, but right this second, Georgia's first loss of the season, Auburn, on the road.
So what makes you, because y'all both picked Auburn to lose. Sorry.
Hold on.
Go ahead, Bill.
You don't
Am I
know
the
what
only
I've picked?
one?
Huh?
You don't know what I've picked?
Come on, do it.
Well, you said picked Auburn to lose. You don't know what I've picked. Here's the way I see it. Georgia, starting out hot, 5-0.
Yeah.
You beat Bama, Gunnar Stockton, everything that Georgia fans want him to be, good old boy, tough ass, all that stuff. Feeling really confident, destroyed Kentucky. But I disagree with you. I think Georgia's roster is better than Auburn's.
I do too.
Comparable, I guess, is...
I feel like it's more comparable this year.
It's way more comparable this year. And, you know, I talked about yesterday about Auburn and Alabama. I just don't trust Auburn to finish games. But there's something about this one. Because I think there's a chance Auburn could already have 2 losses at this point. And the season's basically hinging on them having to get a big win. Hugh Freeze's career at Auburn could be hinging on having to get a big win like this. Not that Georgia overlooks Auburn, because Kirby, you ask him, will tell the players this is one of, if not the toughest place to play. His words, I think LSU is, but his words. I feel like this is the game where Gunnar Stockton makes a couple mistakes to keep Auburn in it. And that magic that we've seen in the past that just comes out of nowhere from Neverland. I think Auburn somehow, whether it's a pick six late, whether it's a block punt on special teams, finds a way to beat number 1 ranked.
Yeah, let's go,
in
son.
Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Let's go, son.
And again, look, you picked him to beat Bama. Don't walk away from that.
That makes more sense.
That
makes more sense.
I mean,
what do you mean?
What if Auburn's dropped?
Wait a minute. You picked Bama to beat Georgia on the road, but Auburn to beat Alabama at home, and you look at me and says it makes no sense for me to pick Auburn to beat Georgia at home.
Because we've beaten Alabama with teams like they have.
It's time.
When's the last time we beat Georgia with
I look like, and again, I could come back, and y'all know I'll eat crow on this. This is a true gut.
So you don't think my pick's crazy?
I know. Okay. I agree with your pick.
All right.
I think Georgia's
Auburn's
first
dropped
loss.
3 by that point, though? What if it's Baylor, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M?
Yeah, I mean,
and then you
I may have jumped off the tallest building in Nashville.
You ever heard of NSYNC?
Yeah.
It freezes. Bye, bye, bye.
All right. So at this point, I've got Georgia at 5-1. Blaine, you have them at 5-1.
Correct.
Cone, you have them at 5-1.
Yes.
So we're all tracking here. Next week, you come back home and you play a sneaky Ole Miss team with Austin Simmons, a guy we really like. You look at Caden Lee. We know Lane's going to have that offense right. I'm interested to see if the Ole Miss defense can get back to close to what they were last year, which I don't think enough people talked about in the front seven, how good they were against the run and overall. But I have Georgia bouncing back after a tough loss on the road to beat Ole Miss at home. I think Georgia's offense will be able to move the ball against Ole Miss's defense a lot easier this year because, again, let's not forget what happened last year, guys. Ole Miss won this game, unless I'm lost my mind here.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a revenge game at home for Georgia. Give me the Bulldogs to get back on the right track and go 6-1.
I've been critical of Lane Kiffin that he couldn't win big games. Well, he did last year. He beat Georgia. And remember, that was the game Jackson Dart went out in the first quarter, and it was Austin Simmons who had to come in and lead the first touchdown drive of that game. Jackson Dart ended up coming back in. Georgia at home, though, revenge game. We put this in our episode of Revenge Games on YouTube, which y'all should go check out. I think the home team gets this one.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like a down goes Frazier type of thing. It's there goes Frazier. I think Nate Frazier has 150-plus rushing yards. They really lean on him this game. And I think it's almost a walkthrough for Georgia, 31-17, 31-17.
All right, so at this point, we all have them 6-1. That's where we have them. You get a bye week, and then we're going to the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, fellas. Yeah. Jacksonville, Florida, rivalry game against the Florida Gators. Blaine, I'll start with you. What do you got going on this game?
I started this one for a while. I've been critical of Billy Napier. But I think Florida wins this football game.
You
got Florida?
I got Florida winning this game. I think this is DJ Lagway, Eugene Wilson. I think that defense. And one thing about Florida that I'm really excited about is the offensive line. I think they're going to have one of the best in the country. Close game. These teams always play each other extremely well. But I just think DJ Lagway is the difference in this game.
Is he healthy? That's what worries me about this.
I'm walking into this in my head that he's healthy. I don't think a calf strain is going to hold DJ Lagway back. I think he's going to be fully ready to go. Well, not 100%. No one's 100% in football. But I feel like DJ Lagway is the difference in this football game. Close. I think it's 27-21 Florida. Huge win for Billy Napier.
Cone?
Florida owned this series when I was growing up, in the Mark Richt years and even into Urban Meyer's tenure at Florida. Kirby Smart came in with a point to beat Florida year in and year out, and he really has lived up to that, man. They've been doing that. And Florida has a bye week before this game as well.
Yes.
They both have bye weeks, which I do think is interesting. I'm a little bit worried about DJ Lagway's health.
Yeah,
I keep hearing, there was an upper body injury and there was a lower body injury, and now was there something else so far in the summer and fall camp
you
early?
had a calf. It's basically the head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
This is such a difficult league to make it through, even when you start healthy. When you're not starting healthy, it's just like, I just have a lot of questions when you go up against this Georgia defense. I got the Georgia Bulldogs in this one.
Well, and to your point, this was the game, and if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments, but I don't think I am, where DJ Lagway got hurt last year against Georgia. Because remember, he was rocking and rolling, and Florida was starting to turn it around. Then he gets hurt in this game. They still did a good job, obviously, down the stretch. But when I look at this, the biggest concern, to your point, is DJ Lagway's health. But Blaine, you talk about the offensive line, where I think Florida's going to be able to stay in this game is the front seven on defense. Yeah, I think this Florida defensive line can really give the Georgia run game some problems. And we know how athletic Florida is in the back end, where they can basically play them even, not have to pressure too much or take too many chances. It's a rivalry game. It's a quote-unquote neutral site. I also have Florida winning this game.
Really?
So I have Georgia losing 2 of 3 in the stretch. And Georgia fans are going to roast me in the comments on social media. That's okay. That's part of it. You got to live by the sword, die by the sword. But I have Georgia, and people are going to start worrying. Oh no, how good is this team? Is it going to fall off down the stretch? Because at that point, with a loss to Florida, you would be 6-2 with 4 games left, including Texas, who we're going to get to. So I have Florida and Billy Napier in a big win that could possibly get them to 9-3. And if Florida goes 9-3 with that schedule, there's a chance they could find themselves within a large bid in the college football playoff this year. Kind of similar in the same vein as we've talked about with Oklahoma and even Texas to a certain extent. But I've got Georgia at this point 6-2. So you have them at 6-2.
Correct. Different 6-2.
Different 6-2. You have them at 7-1.
7-1.
7-1. You go on the road to play Mississippi State. We all got a lot of respect for Jeff Lebby. think he's one of the best play callers in the country. You don't get to see it a lot yet as a head coach because he doesn't have the personnel around to be able to compete in a lot of these games. If they do lose to Florida, just like after losing to Auburn, I think Georgia bounces back, even though it's on the road. Bring your cowbells. Shit ain't going to help. I got Georgia running away and hiding in this one in a good way.
Yeah, this one's not going to be close to me.
All right, so at this point, with 3 games left, I've got Georgia at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-2.
7-2.
7-2. 8-1. Then we get another massive showdown. Texas coming on back. And Georgia beat them twice last. On the road, 30-15, dominated them physically. Then we know in the SEC championship game how crazy that one was. So Texas is going to be out for blood, but Georgia needs this one if it happens the way that I have it, right? Not that a 9-3 Georgia is impossible to make the college football playoff, but I think it's going to be tougher. I got them beating Texas, Arch, coming into Athens, between the hedges. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs in a big statement win to make people think, all right, this Georgia team actually is for real, and put themselves in a position with 2 games left at 10-2, you're getting in, buddy. That's what I got.
Like you said, man, I mean, Georgia beat Texas last year in a true road game and then in a neutral site game, and now you get them at home. And I didn't think like Carson Beck was necessarily the difference maker in those games. I thought that Kirby Smart schemed up Steve Sarkisian as well as I've seen anyone do. And that's just what he's capable of doing. And so I have Georgia beating Texas at home. I think for Texas to go on the road and win a game like that, we're going to need to see a performance a la 2 years ago when they went and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and Quinn Ewers
played his ass
threw for
off,
over
buddy.
300 yards. I mean, just shot after shot down the field.
Xavier Worthy.
Can Arch Manning do that? Maybe. Let's see it, though. I want to see it. And maybe he does it in a different way. Maybe he uses his legs. Maybe he's picking up huge 3rd and 4s, 3rd and 5s off true zone read. Like, I don't know how he's going to do it. Obviously, we're going to get a great taste early on when they go to Columbus and play the Buckeyes. But right now, I feel more comfortable taking Georgia at home.
Yeah, I'm going to take Georgia just because, 1, it's at home. 2, I love the way Kirby Smart schemes against Steve Sarkisian. I think he's probably the best in the country. And I watched a Texas team last year with a better roster lose to Georgia twice. Gunnar Stockton in one game threw for 71 yards and still beat him. So I think it's going to be close. This game will probably get decided in the last 5 minutes. Maybe who even has the ball.
I hope so.
But I think Georgia prevails, maybe with a late field goal or maybe first time in overtime. I'll give me Georgia. So clean sweep.
Okay, so no one's taking Texas.
So clean sweep.
No one's taking Texas in this one. All right, so 8. I got them 8-2 with 2 left, right? You've got them 8-2 with 2 left. Cone, you got them 9-1 with 2 left. So
But
feeling
Charlotte
good.
coming up.
Feeling
But
good.
Charlotte
Come on
coming up.
now.
Yeah, Charlotte, you can get your web out or whatever the hell you want to do, but you got no chance in this one. So we all have them beating Charlotte, heading into the last game of the regular season.
Haynes King, baby.
And at this point, if it happens the way that me and Blaine have it, this is a basic must-win to get to 10-2 to for sure solidify yourself in the college football playoff. But if it happens like you're saying, David, and they're sitting there at 10-1, you're probably already in. If you're
especially with that being an ACC game, because right now I only have them losing to Auburn. Now, granted, I think there's going to be a lot of great teams in the SEC, depending on how those tiebreakers work. Yeah, maybe you would get left out of the SEC championship game with only 1 loss at Auburn. But with that being an ACC matchup, I think they'd get into the SEC championship. And if you win that, obviously you get the automatic qualify.
Yeah, and it's in Atlanta, which I hate that this is a neutral site game. You should just play home and homes. Let's not.
Just like they should do with Florida.
I agree with that with a certain extent, but I think there needs to be a grandfathered in rule that if you've done this for so long, kind of like the Red River shootout as well, that it's okay. But starting to do this now on a neutral side, I'm just not a fan of. Even though Atlanta, obviously, you look at Georgia Tech and where they're at, they're technically in Atlanta, but it's not being played at Georgia Tech Stadium. If what happened last year didn't happen, I could see Georgia Tech being sneaky.
I agree.
But remember last year, how many overtimes was it?
I think it was 8.
It was like
was it
8?
9?
That game was just absolutely insane. Georgia found a way. Georgia Tech isn't sneaking up on anybody this year. And I feel like the book is out a little bit with Georgia and Haynes King. I don't think they're going to be able to do what they did again to Georgia this year.
8 overtimes.
That they did last
44-42.
Just an insane game. I mean, Brent.
I had Georgia money line in a parlay.
What an incredible job by Brent Key last year. Not that Georgia Tech's going to be bad this year. I've got Georgia winning this one. I've got Georgia at 10-2, which is going to set them up, obviously, to be able to keep playing in some big-time games here down the stretch. That's where I have them.
I have nothing much to add because we have the same mindset on this one. I think last year was kind of the time to get them in one of those overtimes. And remember, it was back and forth, and they were just like running the exact same plays. They had all run out of 2-point plays at that time. What a football game. It was so awesome. This is why I think Josh Pate is crazy. College football overtime is amazing, and we shouldn't change it at all. I think Georgia Tech's year to get them was last year. I think Georgia gets this one.
I think Georgia wins, but I still think it's going to be close. Like, I really do. If there's one man that's impossible to kill, I promise you it's Haynes King.
It is tough to kill him.
I think Georgia probably jumps out to a big lead early. Georgia Tech finds a way to fight back, maybe a little bit closer walking through the fourth quarter, but I think the talent of Georgia, just from their depth standpoint, is going to be the reason why they win this football game.
So some Georgia fans, and that's okay, will be pissed that we have them having some losses that they have, but I just wonder which Georgia...
God, imagine being pissed about going
11-1.
Well, that's what I was going to say. In the comments, what I want to know is, if I told you, regardless of who they lost to, who the two losses were, that Georgia would go 10-2 right now, which would guarantee them a spot in the college football playoff, would you Georgia fans take it? Would you take it right now?
Look at what the Buckeyes just did last year at 10-2.
Yeah.
What's the floor, do you think, for Georgia, record-wise?
9-3.
9-3?
I think the floor is 9-3.
Okay.
Ceiling, I think, is undefeated if they absolutely figure it out.
For sure.
Clicking on all cylinders. But, I mean, it's going to be another solid year for Kirby. Again, let us know what you think. What is Georgia's record? Tell us in the comments. Make sure if you're not subscribed that you are. We've got Ohio State coming out tomorrow. First Big Ten team.
Hey.
Yeah, Cone. Think about that.
They'll go undefeated.
Rumor has it Cone has them 5-7, but we'll see. We appreciate you guys joining us again. Please keep sharing the show. And like the chances of me not being excited.
You got your card back.
About weeks, I got the card back.
Don't be scared to throw it this time.
Oh, I'm going to throw it.
Okay.
All right. Me not being excited about college football season being here, we're going.
Oh, that was good length and girth.
Look, I got to give him, I got to throw him.
Oh, I dropped my phone.
Oh, wow.
Catch, man. Did
Wow,
you play receiver?
How professional of you. Gone. We'll see you tomorrow.